On today's podcast, we sit down with Trevor Swenson, the founder and CEO of Dynamic Talent International, one of the fastest growing live agents in the business. Trevor opens up about breaking barriers in the global live music space, working with trailblazing K-pop acts at iconic venues like the Grand Ole Opry and the Apollo, and what it really takes for artists to cut through the white noise of today's music industry. We dive into the evolution of the agent's role, the power of live performance, the future of AI-generated talent, and the keys to long-term career success for artists and agents alike. If you're looking to understand where the music business is heading and how to stand out, this conversation is absolutely unmissable. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we sit down with Trevor Swenson, founder and CEO of Dynamic Talent International, one of the fastest growing live agencies in the industry. Trevor shares his unique insights on navigating the modern music landscape, including the evolving role of agents, the importance of true artist development in the age of viral hits, and how his agency helped transform the U.S. touring scene for K-pop acts like P1 Harmony and One Us. We dive deep into the challenge of cutting through the white noise of today's music industry, the impact of TikTok and viral culture on live performance, and the secrets behind building artists with longevity in a world obsessed with quick success. Trevor also reveals why taking risks, embracing new technologies like AI, and investing in yourself are essential for lasting careers, not just for artists, but for anyone working behind the scenes. If you want to hear how to create true value for your brands and artists, what keeps even the best from succeeding, and why the human feel still matters more than the numbers, this is an episode you simply do not want to miss. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey Insiders, ready to crush it in the music world? Whether you're an artist, band, or future music biz pro, MUBUTV's personalized coaching is your secret weapon.
We'll work with you side by side, sharpening your songs, building your brand story, locking in your ideal audience, and powering up your social media game.
Starting fresh or ready for the next level, we cover everything. Live shows, marketing hacks, branding, all tailored just for you.
Flexible coaching packages let you decide what fits your time and budget. Single sessions or discounted bundles that make investing easy.
Imagine the boost after just one session. Clearer goals, smarter strategies, and unstoppable confidence. Get started with a free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com. That's book.mubutv.com. Let's make your music career unstoppable. Hey Insiders, are you ready to take serious control of your music career? Whether you're dreaming of getting signed, finding the perfect artist manager, or landing your music in movies and TV shows, MUBUTV has you covered with 3 essential free guides.
First, learn how to contact A&R the right way. The insider secrets to approaching executives without burning bridges and with confidence.
Next, discover how to attract the right artist manager, when to start looking, what to expect, and how to find someone who truly believes in your vision.
And finally, unlock the world of sync licensing with how to pitch to music supervisors the right way. Get your music placed in film and TV, reach new audiences, and open up exciting revenue streams.
These guides are packed with real-world advice, practical steps, and the do's and don'ts every artist needs.
If you're listening on this podcast or watching on YouTube, just check the description below to download your free copies now. This is your blueprint for turning dreams into reality. Don't miss out.
Hi, this is Matthew Tilley, Head of Artist and Industry Development at Beatbread, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is Trevor Swenson, founder and CEO of Dynamic Talent International, one of the fastest growing live agencies in the industry. This was what I call, I guess the only way to put it is an essential conversation. You know, Trevor kind of reminded us, I feel, of why the agent, the person booking talent for the live show, why they are so important.
Yep.
And one of the most interesting and I think important things that he said that I picked up on really early was how he talked about the evolving role of agents. It's not just about somebody booking a hall anymore. He talked about, that they are the traditional art of being an agent is changing. And he says that it's partly due to technology and AI, but how agents now must offer more A&R and development support than ever before. And this is true. And one of the things that makes it true is that you have artists today, more and more artists, unsigned artists, by the way, who do not have label deals.
Yeah.
But who have agents who are actively making a living. They are out there performing. They are out there doing shows, both internationally and domestically. And how, I would think that based on that from the past, you would think that the role of the agent has somewhat become a little more, I'm not going to say complicated, but has encompassed a lot more material.
Well, I think also it gets back to the manager. The manager's having to take the role now of the record label, all of those things. And so as you can see that, he's talking about more A&R support and all that stuff. So the agent's role is evolving more intensely into other areas that they normally wouldn't have been. One of the other areas that I loved about this conversation was about shortened fame cycles. And this is very important. The nature of fame has shrunk from the 15 minutes of fame to just a few seconds in the era of social media, meaning that long-term artist development is even more crucial. And this is what we get back to the whole thing that we're harping on with this, is that not only having great songs and all of that we've talked about ad nauseum on the show, but also about how crucial it is to develop your audience and all the factors that encompass everything. Because now the idea that you always talk about, Ritch, is that the hardest thing to get is people's attention in this era that we're living in, because we're getting bombarded from so many different things, not even music, just everything in general, life, that artist development is now more crucial than ever. And that's why you have to have that audience relationship.
Absolutely. And you have to have the people that support that. Very, very much so, especially today.
And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Trevor Swenson.
Trevor, welcome to the show.
Absolute pleasure to be here, guys.
Pleasure to have you. You have built your company, Dynamic Talent, into one of the fastest growing live agencies in the business. I'm curious, what were the defining moments or philosophies from your earlier career that shaped how you approached this new company?
In full retrospect, I would have to give the dynamic of it, pardon the pun, for it being COVID. Pre-COVID, the agency itself was a small little boutique agency, which we still are, of course, but where we were primarily focused on a single genre. We did have some growth in that. We had some successes, but with COVID, I definitely had some time to rethink the process of what we were doing and realized we needed to expand in more of a global business to where we weren't genre typed. We had multifaceted company where we brought in multiple different divisions to where we could service all of our clients in multiple different ways. And it's been very successful since coming back from COVID. So
very, very much so.
Trevor, this is Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show. It's said today that agents are more important, or one of the most important parts of an artist's career than in any other time, due to the radically changing nature of the business. Would you agree? And if so, why?
I mean, I definitely agree. And the art of being an agent is, in my opinion, slowly deteriorating. Not to focus on AI or technology, but technology is definitely taking the focus of being an agent away a little bit to where, it's not the grassroots things of the, not the founders, but, the people in the 90s and the 80s, to where you got to go out and you got to hunt these things down. You got to develop them from, playing in the clubs to, 20, 30 people, all the way to try and grow it to that large theater or even arena or stadium business. It's a new art that's tough because everybody wants everything right away again. There's really, you got your 5 seconds of fame instead of your 15 seconds of fame, which, was 20 years ago.
Right.
So I think, the agent is definitely a big part of that. Managers, the managers that have definitely put their dues in are the ones that are kind of controlling the world that we are in. Pre-COVID, it was actually the younger generation was doing a lot of new artists, and it's a fun industry to be in because it moves so quickly and it evolves so differently. It could be a revolution. It could be, what it may be. That's a really long answer to your question, by the way. So,
Yeah.
But yes, the agent is definitely a big part of things right now because the agents are the ones that, are doing a lot of A&R work, that are finding these artists, that are bringing them to labels, that are bringing them to management teams, and we're building them from there.
Yeah. And what's so interesting too, Trevor, about what you're saying is that the live component, especially in the last, I'd say 6-7 years, has become increasingly more important than it was. I mean, I was talking about this on an A&R panel, and what we were discovering was that a lot of people were being signed who had records that had blown up on the internet or blown up on TikTok. And what they found was that there was no there. There was nothing behind it. They didn't have a show. They didn't know how to perform. They didn't know that there was no building of anything because the artist wasn't developed enough to build that. It's like you can't put an artist out on tour who doesn't have a show, So, I mean, in listening to you, it's like it totally makes sense that component has become so much more important, especially in the last, 5 years. I want to ask you, you've described today's music industry, a lot of it, you use this term white noise. And, what are the specific traits or qualities based on that make you say when you discover someone, this is someone who can cut through that noise and I want to represent them?
So it's the same thing that's been going on since, I guess, the beginning of time of music and any other industry that is. It's creating a better mousetrap, with an artist that's out there that's reshaping a certain genre, or an artist that's actually creating a whole new genre. That's the ever-changing aspect of music. I asked this many times, where, how many people still listen to terrestrial radio? It's a dying art that's out there because it's so hard to find developing artists these days, because you have to put down the artists that are going to make the bills. I'm coming back to the genre aspect of it, where you have to find something that's going to break through, and something that's going to break through for you. Because again, the A&R aspect of it is, it's tougher these days to A&R something. It's easier to go release a song, write a song in 15 minutes. You got your Pro Tools set up at your house, you release it on TikTok, and all of a sudden you have 30 million views. Going back to what you're saying about the no bass of it, though, is there is no bass. 30 million views on TikTok is fantastic, but there's no live show, there's no development of it. The term paying your dues is something that's going to need to be done in the development of these artists, and doing that is playing in front of a club and developing the show, like you were saying, to where it's, again, 25 people a night, and figuring out how to get through that, or getting through a bad show where, you got bad production, or you're just having a bad night, you're sick. There's so many different ways to develop it. But yes, we need a little bit more development, and finding that artist to sign is somebody that you think can break through those walls. If it's a rock and metal band that's doing something different, that's got an incredible live show, that's going to take things over, as opposed to just having great songs, which the problem also with these days is there's not a lot of great songs that are breaking through, because it's harder and harder, because there's a lot of bad songs that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the bad songs are getting more attention because they're doing something funny on TikTok, or they're doing something, cool and amazing on YouTube that, their friend posted it up and they got, like I said, 30 million views on it. So,
yeah. Speaking of TikTok, you've talked about the disconnect between TikTok followers and real world engagement, like ticket sales. And I'm curious, in a world where so much attention is driven by virality, how do you help artists build longevity?
It's teaching everybody how to do, the work, the work. It will be respected. It's certain genres is a little bit different. Country music, rock music, metal music, those tend to last a little longer when you're out there being a road dog and you're doing the touring. Pop takes, technique development, takes, writing, you got to have great songs to back up everything. You got to have hits. You have to make sure you're putting in the work to be able to develop it and keep those core base of people. With TikTok, you have a listener for 4 seconds. And if you don't win them in that 4 seconds, they're not going to buy a ticket. They're not going to buy a t-shirt. They're not going to buy, they're not a buyer for you. They're not a fan. They're just somebody that's been doom scrolling through TikTok all night and they heard your song a couple times. So,
yeah, exactly. I want to shift gears here to another aspect of Dynamic Talent. Dynamic Talent was instrumental in P1 Harmony becoming the first K-pop act to play a show at Nashville's historic Grand Ole Opry. And I think it was the band, do you pronounce it One US?
One Us.
One Us, delivering the first public K-pop show at New York's, iconic Apollo Theater. And ATEEZ making their stadium debut in Brazil. I mean, these are all very unique, individualistic kinds of elements. My question to you, Trevor, is what lessons can other genres, perhaps those in underserved or underrepresented in the traditional U.S. touring infrastructure, what can they take from K-pop's rise? Because these are all very unique things that you've done in that space.
Yeah, I mean, and the Apollo thing, the reason that the Apollo, obviously, it's not only a famous venue, is BTS did their non-seated or non-attended show at the Apollo during COVID when they did their live stream. We did the first publicly attended one. The one at the Grand Ole Opry was incredible with Piano Harmony. Like, who knew on Super Bowl Sunday that we would produce a show that did that many people at a country venue? It was pretty fun. But the lesson, I guess, in it is, and with K-pop is take risks. Like, you know, and we're doing that actually a lot with our country artists lately too. Is we're not putting our country artists in country venues. You know, it's because, you know, sometimes the fan or the buyer doesn't just translate with certain areas. So maybe try something different to get their attention in a different way. Since we go back to it, you know, it's 5 seconds of fame. We got to figure out how to hold on to that 5 seconds for these people right now and keep their attention. And keeping people's attention is the hardest thing in the music industry to do, because it's very similar to the NFL or any other sports. There's 10,000 artists or performers right behind them ready to replace them. So I guess trying something different, keeping people's attention, that's the risk you have to take. And that's the risk that K-pop definitely took for the first 10 years of their growth. Things are definitely evolving in the K-pop world now, but yeah, that's the risk, because you got to take and do something different.
Very much so.
You know, Trevor, with the current landscape emphasizing quick hits over long-term artist development, what do you think is the key to building longevity for artists in an industry that's so focused on short-term success? You kind of touched on that, you know, especially in the context of platforms like TikTok.
Yeah, like I said, it's the work. You know, you got to go out there and you got to work. You know, writing those new songs, making sure that you're doing those strategic tour dates, making sure that, you know, we're building that fan base with, you know, our listenership with Spotify. We're tracking the data, making sure that we're finding those listeners, hitting the markets that are underserved, hitting the countries that are underserved. You know, like, I mean, you know, the biggest country market in the world right now is Australia, of all places. So, and like, that's a great place to try and grow your brand is through Australian touring. Like, and then the TikTok community, you know, it's getting out there and doing something. Yeah, it's great. You can sit at home and make $100,000 a month doing nothing on TikTok. But if you want longevity past, you know, 5 years, then you got to get out there and do something. So, and playing shows is a big part of that, and doing special events is doing that. And, you know, to do a complete crossover reference to it, it's Mr. Beast. You know, Mr. Beast just kept pounding people and doing and perfecting his craft until it became Mr. Beast. And that's the one thing that these TikTok artists and stars have to do is perfect their craft. So.
Hey, insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned, because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey there, insiders. Are you dreaming of making it big as a musician, artist, or industry pro? Well, at MUBUTV, we offer personalized coaching to help you turn that dream into reality.
Think of us as your personal guides, helping you polish your songs, craft your story, find your fans, and grow your social media like a pro.
No matter where you are in your journey, we've got the tools and strategies to take you higher. From live gigs to branding and marketing, our coaching is all about you.
Choose what fits your budget, from single sessions to value-packed bundles.
Start with a free 15-minute discovery call today at book.mubutv.com. Your music career is waiting. Remember why you started making music? That feeling of passion, hope, and longing, wanting someone to hear your story?
But chasing success can be confusing. Who do you reach out to? When? How do you avoid mistakes that could close doors?
At MUBUTV, we believe every artist deserves a clear path forward. That's why we've created 3 free guides that cover the essential skills every musician needs.
How to contact A&R executives with confidence. How to attract an artist manager who gets you. How to pitch your music for film and television placements.
These aren't just tips. They're blueprints designed for artists who want more than just dreams. They want results.
If you're listening right now on this podcast or watching on YouTube, look in the description below. Download these free guides that will change how you approach your music career forever.
Don't wait. Your future fans are waiting.
Hi, this is J. Edward Keys, Editorial Director at Bandcamp. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
Just staying with it. Yeah, exactly. I want to shift gears here for a second to another aspect of your work. You've recently formed a brand partnership and sponsorship division at the company. And I have a two-part question for you on that. What elements does a dream partnership look like between a brand and an artist? And what's been the biggest lesson from building this side of the business for you?
I got to say, I love that question. The dream partnership is something that's going to lift both brands up. Meaning, like, if we join if we join a great company with a great artist, and both of them are going to benefit wholly from that relationship and that partnership, to where, the partner can, if they're commerce, they can sell more products. If they're an artist, then they're selling more records, or their streams go up, or their visibility goes up. Those are the dream aspects of it. The financial aspect thing is one thing, but it's more of like, let's make sure both those companies and both those entities are growing. That's the dream aspect for me. I guess the biggest learnings I have so far, not only do I have an incredible team that I formed to do this, which I'm super proud of them so far, but like, it's that a very young generation of people control the brand market and control the sponsorships market. And that's a really nice thing to have, that the youth is controlling this. But what that's telling us is that even though everybody thinks that the youth don't want to be advertised to or don't want to be catered to, they absolutely do, because they're part of it. They're the ones that are designing it. They're the ones that are there. So that's the exciting part. And the challenge is to find how to tap into the youth of America. And luckily the people that are youth are running it. So,
Trevor, we talked about it earlier in the conversation about AI, and I want to pose something really interesting to you. You've touched on AI potentially reshaping the industry with virtual artists. Would you ever represent an AI-generated act? Why or why not?
We actually do represent a few of them. So
really? Okay. Wow. Okay.
It's not necessarily AI. You have the avatar bands,
right?
Then those have been out for 10 years now. But
right.
The avatar bands are technically AI. Unless it's a real singer singing behind it. But it's the AI artists. Like it keeps coming back to a couple of things I touched on earlier. It's if you have good songs, that's what it takes. Like, people want to hear good music. Yeah, the industry has changed over time, where you have to have a beautiful singer or a beautiful songwriter, or you got to have some kind of cool niche on stage with wearing a mask or doing some kind of shock aspect of things. But like, the AI aspect it scares the hell out of me. It scares the hell out of everybody, I think, in the music industry, because it's the most easily managed system in the world, because you're telling a computer what they have to do.
Right.
And there's really no overhead other than the production aspect if it tours. But like, it just boils down to good songs. If it's a good song, great. Like, I think the biggest and the hardest part, not only is it going to take money out of artists' pocket, but the easier part is, publishing companies for movies, they're just going to say, hey, generate a cool AI for this part of a movie, and it's going to create it. And I think you might see the movie industry start moving faster, but I have no idea. There's a whole AI is the craziest thing right now. And I think that it's going to reshape everything about not only our planet, but of course the music industry with everything. I know that Spotify is pushing back with a lot of stuff. So is Apple Music, where if it's an AI artist, they're not supporting it yet. But I think that it's going to change. So if it's a good song, people are going to want to listen to it. So.
Yeah, that's gonna change. I think that Pandora's box is out, or that genie's out of that bottle.
Yeah, I will say this on the aspect of AI with agents. I have a feeling that we're probably some of the few things that are safe.
Right.
Because the sales aspect with AI, I don't know has even been thought of yet, other than, of course, like dialed phone calls and stuff like that. But I think as an AI, other than paperwork aspect of things, we're pretty safe. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you, with the landscape changing so rapidly in the music business, streaming economics, touring volatility, new technologies, and fan expectations, what qualities, and you touched on this a little before, but I want to get deeper into it. What qualities or instincts do you feel great agents of tomorrow must possess, not only to survive, but to actually create long-term success for their clients?
I think it's, being an agent in the entertainment world is a very tough thing. And I say that very lightly, knowing that, blue collar jobs are way tougher than what we'll ever do. But like, it's the fact that you have to have a certain mindset, and not only just a salesperson's mindset, you have to have an extremely tough skin because, you deal with egos, you deal with, vast amounts of capital, you deal with schedules, you deal with all kinds of things that the normal person is never taught in school how to do these things. Like, it's just, you have to be very streetwise to do this. Finding the qualities of an agent is tough because that's the hiring aspect. A lot of agencies are having a lot of hard times hiring new people because it's hard to train this into somebody. So, the qualities you want to look for is you want to look for somebody that has a little bit of, in my eyes, a little aggressive. You want them to be able to go out there and be the absolute self-starter they can be. You can't have somebody that's just an order taker. That's not really a good agent. Attention to detail. They got to know how to do paperwork, and they have to know how to be able to run a team because you have to have somebody to help you, and you have to have a team under you to do this job. You can never do it by yourself. I guess those are the easiest ones to point out because they're the toughest things to find in people to do this job. So you also have to be able to shut it off every now and then, and to know the ability to be able to shut it off, meaning like in the agency world, you're pretty much always on because you're always working, because as long as there's a band on tour somewhere on the planet, you're always working. So, but you have to figure out how to turn it off. And if people can't do that, it's a very Wolf of Wall Street's situation there. So,
yeah, very much so. A lot of times too, you have to be a people person. You have to be somebody who's comfortable with talking to people and having relationships with people, so many different types of people, as you pointed out. In that sense, it's not a job that you can strictly do by phoning it in. You have to be at I'm sure, you have to be at those shows. You have to show up and meet that person that you've been negotiating with, whether it's an arena or a promoter or, whatever. I mean, and that's a skill set that I find is challenging today among a lot of younger people. They're not as social or as outgoing or as people-oriented over the last 10 years as perhaps generations before them were.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is. You're correct. Like, you do have to be a people person. Some agents are definitely introverts in our business, but sometimes that actually helps, and that's the team aspect. So say they're superior, say if you work at a bigger agency, the agency signs the business, and as long as you have somebody that can service the account, then it works for everybody. If you're going to be out there and be a super agent where you're signing your own business, then obviously, yes, you're correct. You got to be a people person, and you got everybody. The majority of the people have to like you because not everybody can like you.
Trevor, in a business where social media reach and streaming numbers, brand ambassadors, and even film roles are increasingly driven by metrics, how do you separate noise from true artistry? In other words, what does talent really mean to you in today's industry?
That's a tough question. I would have to say that a talent is something that stands out. Like, it's one of those, I guess the analogy I can give is it's a baseball scout hearing a baseball player hit a ball off a bat and knowing that that's a great baseball player. Or if you're a talent agent looking at this artist and they're on stage and you're like, wow, that's absolutely incredible. Like, that's where you're like, this is a moment where you're like, I want this. I want to build this. I want this to be the next thing. Like, I guess to me, it's a feeling. It's more of that as opposed to somebody telling you to like it. Usually when somebody tells you to like it, it's a lot harder to like it. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
No, it does.
Yeah. I had a very good example of that a couple of years ago. I had an artist that got sent over to me by a manager saying, hey, you should work with this. And I listened to it online and I go, there's no way this is real. The moment I flew out, I saw the band live. Within 2 seconds, I go, that's real. This is going to be incredible. And that band will someday be in arenas. Absolutely. And so far it's come true. So, so yeah, it's definitely a feel thing. The music industry is a feel thing. And, music is something that, this is so cliche, but the music is definitely something that touches everybody's souls in a different way. And if it touches you that way, then it's going to work. So,
yeah, it's so interesting hearing that answer from you because so much of this still is is gut, is emotion, regardless of what the metrics or the, the likes or the reach of it. A lot of people have a lot of that, but the music just doesn't, it doesn't connect the way that you're talking about, like that feeling that you had when you said, listening to that manager's music, and you said, this isn't real. And then when you saw it live, like knowing, like, I have to be a part of this. I want to represent this. I mean, there's probably no greater feeling than that.
Yeah, it's completely magical, and it's so cool to be a part of once you find it. So
yeah, absolutely. I want to shift gears here for a second and ask you a reflective question on your own career. Throughout your career, have there ever been any books or films or documentaries that you've read or seen that were particularly inspirational to you, professionally speaking, that you could recommend?
Hate giving credit to this, but it's a great book. Powerhouse CA was a fantastic book.
Powerhouse?
Yeah, Powerhouse CA, the book written about the history of CA.
Right. Oh, yes,
okay.
yes.
Powerhouse CA.
I have that book right here, actually, down here somewhere. Yeah.
Great.
It's a great book. And I thought it would be nothing but just like, just white noise, like we were talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, we're going to talk about how we're this fantastic thing. But it was super interesting how they touched on, the dynamics of how it was built, and essentially, in the nicest way possible, how they kind of undercut everybody to build their agency up from the beginning. And it's a very interesting book, how it took it through, from when it was founded to all the way up till today. It was a good book. So
yeah, it was founded by I think it was three people who broke away from another agency initially. I believe that was the roots of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they just said they came out with the plan to make a multifaceted system to where they developed artists, and then they took it from not wanting to develop artists anymore to where we want the biggest names in the industry, and we don't care what it takes to get them. So it was pretty cool.
And Mike Ovitz did that very, very quickly, relatively speaking. So
yeah,
it's just interesting.
The book turned out great, and I read it cover to cover, and I don't read many books. So.
Trevor, what holds people back from success in their music careers?
I mean, it's the music industry is so tough. I keep throwing out cliches and quotes and everything, but like, the Hunter S. Thompson quote is obviously the most famous music industry quote there is. But like, it's true. This is this is the kind of industry that'll chew you up. And I don't know, can we swear on the show?
Yeah.
But it'll spit you right out. But I guess the biggest thing that'll hold people back is they just get in their own way, and you lose mental focus in this game, and it's really hard to get it back because there's so much negative that comes at you when the positive can be really tough to find. Yeah. And it's almost like a drug, and once you get that drug, if you can't keep chasing that big win and that big
exactly.
There's
just a lot of rejection in this business. And that's the other thing about being tough and, rising up above this, that, I mean, I don't think there's no other business that I can think of offhand that has so much rejection thrown at you.
I mean, other than the stock market.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, you just got to stay focused, and that's the big key. And like I said, when we were talking about the dynamics of finding a good agent, you got to find somebody that can disconnect and recenter themselves with everything, because this is a tough job.
Yeah, and it can burn you out very easily. Trevor, what is the one piece of advice you have for artists who are committed to building careers for themselves in music, not just to get attention, but to last?
Invest in yourself and make sure to do some real research before you keep doing things. Like the reason that managers exist is because artists don't manage themselves, and that's totally great. But do some research. It's not always best to sign a record deal. It's not always best to sign with XYZ agent. It's not always best to sign with XYZ manager. Like, do some research, figure out what you're going to do to maintain longevity, keep up with your craft. But once you hit something that's actually working, make sure you can adapt to that at all times. Never do the same thing. You keep doing the same thing. There's only one band in history that's ever done the same thing and been successful, and that's AC/DC. So,
yes,
but
through different singers, even they've done the same. Yeah,
Same song they wrote for 50 years, and they kept being successful. So
Yeah, and they still are. They're still going. So, Trevor, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This has been a wonderful conversation, and it's been very, very educational.
I appreciate you guys. This was great. Fantastic questions. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Man, it's always great, Eric, when we can speak to somebody of Trevor's caliber, knowledge, history, and insight. Several things in this conversation that I thought were just absolutely essential, important, and really revealing on many levels. One of the things that he talked about that I think is really important for our listeners is the whole element of development over virality. And what he meant by that is how, so many times we have these viral successes, like millions of TikTok views, and how little that meant in terms of translating into actual ticket sales. Like, there's this thing online, but nobody cares. It's like, and we see that at the major label level, where you'll have somebody with like 200 million streams, but they can't sell 100 or 200 tickets to a gig. Nobody wants to give the time and energy to that. And that's talking about essential artist development today. And, he spoke about you got to do the work. And it didn't matter because he's talking about rock. He's talking about K-pop. He's talking about all kinds of areas of the business where that element of building a connection with your audience, that there's no shortcut to that today. That's absolutely crucial and essential. And I thought that was a very interesting part because it gets to the whole work ethic and so many other areas that surround that.
Yeah, one of the other areas, and this is something that we've preached on the show quite a bit, but it's great when people of his caliber talk about it, because then it hits home with people. And what I thought was the work ethic is non-negotiable. Longevity comes down to doing the work, writing songs, honing your live show, and touring strategically to build a dedicated fan base. You see these ongoing themes that we talk to countless people in different areas of the business, and they're saying the same thing. So this is why it's so important for you guys that are listening, how important it is to develop this work ethic. And you've got to be working at this every day. I mean, you're not going to be at 100% every day, but you got to do something for your career every day, whether it's small, big. Some days you're going to have a big win. Some days you're not going to have that much of a win, but at least you're moving the ship, that 1% that you and I talk about all the time, that 1% improvement. That's the whole idea behind that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the whole philosophy of the commitment as a way of life. If you are going to be an artist, meaning you have made the decision that being an artist is going to be your life, you have to know that this is your life. It's not a destination like once you get there, like in a year or so, and if you don't, well, you'll go drive a truck. Most likely you'll end up driving a truck if that's the consciousness. You've got to realize this is a committed way of life, and it's not something that you can take for granted. Absolutely crucial. And that means living and breathing your art, your music, your performance, every aspect to it. Because otherwise, I think today you'll be lost if you don't have that level of commitment. And that to me begins with the consciousness of what you're talking about.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.